Hello and welcome back to a little bit of Common Crazy. My name is Jennifer and today I have some new DIYs to share with you. If you missed my latest haul, first you should check it out, but you also would have missed that I am decorating with lemons for my summer decor, and I didn't want to stick with just yellow, so I am using yellow and pink lemonade for my color scheme. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. I hope that you will take a moment and introduce yourself in the comments below, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my future videos. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a big thumbs up. If you don't know it, you can find me on Instagram. It is a little bit of Common Crazy over there, just like it is here. And let's go ahead and jump right on into it. So to start off, I'm using this Oh Sweet Summer sign from the Dollar Tree. I love this sign and I love this saying. They have other ones similar, but I loved this saying. But it didn't quite match my decor, so I definitely have to change it up. And if you want to do the same thing, here's what you will need to do. First, you will remove the fruit from the sign as carefully as you can to not rip too much of the paper that is underneath. This is actually grapefruit, and so we need it to be lemon, so we're going to take those off of the sign. And I'm going in with a small screwdriver in order to help me carefully peel it away. You will do that to the half grapefruit as well as the whole grapefruit. After that, go ahead and take a light sandpaper and sand any of the black glitter right off the Oh Sweet Summer so that that will not interfere when you go to paint the sign in just a moment. Next, you will remove the tip of the straw. This is a little hatch saw that does come from the Dollar Tree, and it does a perfect job of removing the tip of the straw right off of the sign. Once you have removed it, just go ahead with a piece of sandpaper to smooth out your edges. Prep your holes where your string was hanging and make sure that they are smooth and ready for the wood filler, and go ahead and fill those in with wood filler. Now this also did come from the Dollar Tree. It is just the Elmer's wood filler. Just place a little bit of that into your holes, and I just use my finger in order to kind of just make sure that is flush, and then set the sign aside to let that set up, and then you can begin working on the other parts of the sign. So I use some Waverly chalk paint in the color Maize. I do pick this up at Walmart. Don't forget, there will be a supply list below in the description box. So now it is time to work on the fruit. So start off by sanding the glitter off of both pieces of fruit. Now it is time to make this grapefruit into a lemon. So take your favorite paintbrush. This is actually my daughter's Crayola paintbrush. I get questions about it all of the time. It is linked below. And it's just a really firm paintbrush that I borrowed and never have returned. And I'm just taking it around and painting the yellow chalk paint over all of that, kind of that coral grapefruit color that you see. Now to get the very tips of the grapefruit, because those are very fine, I actually just used a tiny little screwdriver because I didn't want to bother with a paintbrush. I didn't have a paintbrush that didn't have little hairs that were kind of fraying, that was stiff enough for me, and the screwdriver was the perfect thing for me. I probably do need to get a better set of paintbrushes, so that is on my wish list. You will need to do 2 coats of the yellow chalk paint on the center part of the grapefruit in order to create the lemon, and you will do the exact same thing on the half grapefruit as well. Once the yellow paint has set up and dried, you will go in with a white paint. I use Waverly's chalk paint. You will now paint the areas of the lemon that are white. You do not need to cover them completely. You actually just need the white that is brighter so that it will match the rest of the sign when everything comes back together. So you just need this bright white to be on there. You will also use the white to correct any of the yellow that is not exactly the way that you want it to be. So go in with a smaller paintbrush or the same paintbrush that you had before if you're able to use it, and then just take it on the white areas of your lemon until you get your desired look. Again, you will do this same thing to the half lemon as well. Now it is time to paint your sign, so going in with the exact same white chalk paint, take a brush or a foam brush or whatever you have, and you are going to start off with 1 coat and completely cover your sign. Then set that side aside and let it completely dry before you add a second coat. After that has completely set up and dried, you will go in with a second coat because you do want to make sure that you are covering up all of those colors that are underneath. This time be very mindful of your paint strokes because they will be showing through. And this time I did decide to go in with a foam brush because it does lay the product on a little bit thicker as well as a little bit more smoothly with less paint brush strokes. Again, after the second coat, set it aside to let it dry, and then once it has completely dried, then you can move on to the next step. As you can see, you can slightly see the Oh Sweet Summer poking through the chalk paint, which is great because you are going to now trace those out because we still want to use those words for the sign. If you feel more comfortable, you can start by tracing them out first with a pencil, or you can go ahead and just go straight in and tracing them out with a Sharpie. My 2 tips for doing this are first, to make sure that you have good lighting so that you can really see it. So daylight is one of the best things that I can suggest. So if you are able to do this with some natural daylight next to a window, then I would suggest doing that so that you can really see the words and have that lighting come in to help you see those. Second is, before you even start the project, take a picture of the sign so that you are able to revert back to that picture and look at what the words look like on the original sign before you ever painted over them. You can also choose to do this with a black paint if you choose to. I chose to go ahead and just do it with Sharpie. It was a lot easier, plus it has a quicker dry time. So after that, I decided that it needed a little extra decorating, so I'm going in and I'm adding some pink yarn that I just had lying around the house. So I'm taking the pink yarn and wrapping it around about 3 times and just tying a knot onto the back. After that, I decided to create a little tassel. So by taking the tassel, I wrap it around my hands first. I then take a small piece of the yarn and I tie off the top of it in order to keep that secure with a knot. Then I take another piece of yarn and I tie off just slightly down from that, and I kind of like a little head, I don't know how to say that, into that section. And then on the bottom of it, I cut the bottom open so all of the fringes can hang down, and then I trim those so that they are at the same length. So first, when I added it onto the sign, I tied them onto the sign, but I wanted them to be a little bit more secure and stay kind of where I wanted them placed. And so I did go back in and decided to hot glue it onto the sign. So now it's time for you to put your lemons back onto your sign. And so to do this, I chose to use some wood glue. You could also use some hot glue. It would add a little bit more height to it, and it wouldn't be as flush to the sign, but it would dry faster. So go ahead and choose whichever glue you have on hand or whichever glue you prefer, and just make sure that you are covering up any of the damage that was created when you removed them in the first place. So here's where I decided to go ahead and hot glue the tassel down and also to trim the tassel a little bit shorter. This may seem to be an optional step for some of you, but some of those darker purple circles were showing through, and so I went in with the same yellow chalk paint and this little dauber and just popped that right on to cover those up so that it was no longer an issue. And then I decided one extra one right on top just for balance. Of course, you can leave this just as a sign exactly the way it is. I'm actually not sure if I'm going to do that yet, or if I'm going to go ahead and let it be a wreath, and let me show you how that looks as well. All I did was take a Dollar Tree wreath form and a couple rolls of the pink burlap and some hot glue. I secured with hot glue. I wrapped the rolls of burlap around the wreath form, and then it was ready for my sign. Now you can add the sign directly onto the wreath form itself, or you can use some pipe cleaner or twine, hot glue those onto the back of the sign, and then just tie or twist those onto the sign so that the wreath can be used for multiple things and you can change it as you want to. Let's go ahead and move on to sign number 2. You will need the sign that says Tiki Bar, the chalkboard wood stakes, 1 or 2 packs of the wooden letters, I will explain that in a moment, as well as the small black sticker letters. I use a lot of the wooden letters, and I tend to use a lot of the letter E. So this time I'm going to create my own letter E's and save my E for another time. So I am taking the letter F, because I have several of them, and creating my own letter E's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my F's on top of each other, and I'm going to take one the correct way, and then I'm going to flip the other one upside down. And you can see here that I create the letter E. After that, using a box cutter, I go ahead and I cut both the top and the bottom in the same spot, and then I can place them back together, and then they will form the letter E. Now, I go ahead and I sand off any rough edges, and the best way to help these to stay together while I am letting them dry is to place them on a piece of contact paper so that the adhesive part of the contact paper will hold them together while the glue sets in and dries. So I did the exact same thing with my next two F's in order to create another E. The only thing that I did differently, and I actually like this tip, is that I used these first F as a guide in order to cut the second F so that my F's actually line up a little bit better and a little bit more flush when I am matching them up. Once the wood glue has completely dried, I go in with some wood filler and I fill in any sort of weird crack or hole that might be left over between the two pieces to make sure that my F's are joined together to make the perfect E's. Using Waverly's chalk paint and Maize, paint the letters to spell out the word lemonade. While those are drying, go ahead and move on to the sign. So first you're going to start off by taking your wood filler and filling in the holes at the top of the sign where the string originally was. You're also going to let that set aside and dry, and once that sets up, you're going to go in with some sandpaper to sand that smooth, as well as the rest of the sign, to make sure that you have a smooth surface, or a fairly smooth surface, before you go in with your white chalk paint and give it just one coat. Don't be too concerned if some of the distressing shows through. Once that dries, go in with some black acrylic paint. Do a light brushing using the black paint onto the sign. So I like to make my edges just a little bit more intense than I do the center of the sign, and so I take the brush around the edges first, just giving it a little bit more of depth and dimension. And then once I have done my edges, I will then take the brush through the center just in a light, even strokes. You can always add more if you want to add more, but it is harder to take it away. So just go in with a light hand. After the paint dries, go ahead and go in with a thin layer of Mod Podge and cover the sign. I went ahead and covered it completely because it will seal everything in, and I wanted to do that, but it will also help your stickers to stick, which we are just about to do. I like to use a ruler to help me to space out my stickers, and I'm not too worried about losing some of the stickiness or the adhesive off of the sticker itself, because I'm actually using Mod Podge to make sure that they will adhere to the board. So because it is with Mod Podge, they're kind of slipping and sliding around a little bit. So I was hoping that they would go straight onto the board, but that didn't work. But let me show you what actually does work out really well. I found that I still like to use the ruler as far as giving me the right placement on where to place my letters so that all my letters lined up exactly where I needed them. It also still did help me with spacing them out from one another. So I'm still using the ruler, it just didn't go straight down like I had initially planned. But this is still a really easy and quick way to make sure that all of your letters line up and that you have them exactly where you want to do. So again, I spelled out the word fresh squeezed. You could also do freshly squeezed if you prefer. After you have applied your stickers, go ahead and go over them one more time with another layer of the Mod Podge, just to make sure that they are nice and adhered to your board. Going back into the white chalk paint and using the little chalk sign on a stick, I borrowed my daughter's paintbrush again, and I just free-handed 25 cents. And while that was drying, it was time for me to add lemonade onto my sign. I find it the easiest to go ahead and lay everything out so I know exactly where I need it all to go. Again, I'm going in with wood glue in order to adhere the letters down. I just place a little bit of wood glue on the back of each letter and then glue those down. I also place a little bit of wood glue on the back of the chalkboard stick in order for that to stay down as well. I set that aside and let everything dry, and then there you have it. The sign is done. It is perfect the way it is. I actually love it. I almost want to make a second one because I think it is so cute just as a sign. But here it is also as a wreath using the same base that I used earlier to show you the other wreath. All I did was add 3 little lemons on it as well, and I think it makes the cutest, brightest, most perfect wreath for summer. I hope that you love these signs as much as I do, and I would love to hear from you. Would you leave these as signs just the way they are? Would you place them on a wreath? Let me know that in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Make sure that you have hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!